kind of come online. We're live. Cool. Okay, so welcome to today's garden class. Glad you all are here. This is the last day of summer. It's kind of sad. Summer's my favorite season. Fall is like the #1 season, but my favorite. I like the heat. I like summer. And I don't like clothes. I like swimsuits, just out there sunbathing. I like that. Fall, we kind of had this last night. Big storm. Where did that come from? So we're winding down out of this monsoonal pattern, and then it kind of teases us. The last few days of summer always teases us into it's going to be fall soon. It's going to be, and then it'll heat back up. So it'll be warm again. It'll be summer again. Indian summers are common for us, and so but it'll be like this till really the end of November. And so if you've noticed how fast your plants are growing, welcome, come on in. How fast your plants are growing right now, that's why fall is one of the best times to plant, because they root out so fast, they keep growing through all of autumn, and then they kind of hibernate, rest a little bit. They're still growing. If you'll notice, even in January, the buds are growing on the trees, the flower buds, the leaf buds. So it's just a tremendous time to plant, especially privacy screens or estate kind of walls. So I'm going to go over kind of the big 5 of the shrubs, how to space things, how to get the most growth out of them, because you're going to plant them now and you need them to grow fast. It's the beauty of why you're planting now, so you get that spring growth. We'll do all that in about 50 minutes. We'll have time for Q&A, then we'll wrap it up. So, sound good? I've got 2 handouts for you, including online. So in the right-hand side, in the conversation level, you'll kind of see 2 links. Have you got those uploaded yet, Johnny? Yes. Or momentarily they will be. So I wrote a book on, if you're a note taker, you'll have a book in your inbox, PDF. Download it, print it if you want. It'll be there for you. You can read it on your iPad, whatever. It'll be there for you. It'll go over all of this, spacing, time, how to grow it, how to plant it, which varieties. It'll have all of that. And then I wrote an article late last year on this subject. I'll send that to you on the same thing. Those 2 handouts. If you want that, put your email right here, and then it'll be to you probably right after the class, because we got someplace else to be, but I'll probably go over and just quickly upload that. It'll be kind of a short, quick email, just the 2 links. Boom. Look for it. It'll just say class handouts. Okay, so if you're part of the garden club, you're one of 12,000 people and growing. So it's not going to everyone, just to you all. And so it's just to folks that really want to be here, and privacy or living walls is of interest. Okay, so you'll have to put your email down or you're not going to get it. Okay. All right. Hi, my name's Ken. I'm the owner of the Garden Center. I've been doing this for 32 years. I came into the business, thank you very much. I'm not sure, I'm starting to look at the end going, how long can I keep doing this? Or this morning, how long do I want to? The grandkids, I got a new grandson coming in November, going, oh, our kids are building a new house because their family just outsized their current family house, too many kids. And I'd rather go back and help them landscape or add a patio or something. So trying to figure out how much longer. Welcome, good to see you. So 32 years, I'm 2nd generation owner. So my wife, her father started the business back in 1962. And so that's how the Lanes come to own Waters Garden Center. Well, it's Lisa Waters Lane. I married in, came in that way. Our daughter, Mackenzie, is now currently training to take it for the 3rd generation. That's kind of our claim to fame. We were the very first garden center to open, retail garden center to open in northern Arizona. Back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, there were some who forgot to turn their phone off? Oh, where was I at? No, I totally forgot what I was doing. There were some garden centers on baseline down in Phoenix. That was pretty much it. So we've been trying to figure out this plant thing ever since. So I'm going to bring to you some of that experience of which ones grow the fastest, what are the most popular, what are the easiest to grow, without all the care and bugs and issues. So we'll go over that and how to space it. That's the big one. How many do I need is the big question. So that's who I am. We're here at Waters Garden Center. We've been here. This is our new location. We've been here since 1983, so it's still going. And Harold Waters, who bought this and built it, never dreamed we'd use all the acreage. So I wish I had another 2 acres all of a sudden, but that's kind of how the town has grown. Okay, so shrubs, then trees. Let's start with vines. So vines, if you've got that chain link fence, you can see right through it, and your neighbor just got a new hot tub, and you're just tired of watching them sip a cocktail in the hot tub, with or without scabies. I'm not sure. I just don't want to see that. And you want to block it. You can easily grow vines up any wall, plus about 2 feet. They'll naturally go 2 feet above the wall without any care. If you want to go taller than that, you'll need a trellis or something for them to climb up. Though it's almost unlimited how tall a vine will grow. But just naturally it'll go about 2 feet. So 6 foot plus 6 foot fence, typical fence, about 8 feet. Okay. Most popular. Hey Johnny, maybe you could have them turn off the radio. Yeah. So it doesn't interfere with these folks. Well, it's kind of pleasant. I like the tune. But anyway, this is #1 seller of all the vines. It's honeysuckle. Semi-evergreen. So most winters it holds its foliage. If we get a real harsh winter, it can go deciduous. That is, it will lose or shed its leaves. This is the one that has that real sweet flower to it. You get stuck on the stamens, and it's real sweet to the taste. It's a pollinator, brings in butterflies and hummingbirds. It's a really good, strong plant for here. It can be grown as a ground cover. Probably the #1 way it's grown is as a ground cover to soften up or hold in hills, but it easily grows up through a fence, or if it's got something to climb, it's going to grab. It's got tendrils. It's going to grab and grow up easily 8 feet plus 2 feet. Okay, but it'll be easily above head high, easily, and this wide, one plant. So now you're spacing about 1 vine per panel, per section, per about 1 every 6 or 8 feet, and you're going to get a solid green mass across there. Now the question is, how many do you need? Is too much of the same thing. How do you make it more garden-esque? So when I've done this on my Prescott Valley home, our first home was in Prescott Valley. I was trying to cut the wind and some privacy. But 1 per panel. But I didn't have honeysuckle over the entire thing. It was just too much. So I grouped them in 3s. So I went 3 honeysuckles, then 3 something else. So I put them in 3s. And now all of a sudden it feels like a living garden, not like a solid wall. Like, what are they trying to block out? Were they like axe murderers, burying bodies in the back? Why is it all the same? Why is it all? I kind of want it to feel like a secret garden. So when you do it that way, it feels more natural. And then in front of the vines, I planted fruit trees. I just wanted an orchard. It was a small yard. So I just came in about 5 feet and I just started putting fruit trees down the line. It was glorious when I got done. I still miss that property. So honeysuckle was a core. This is one that, come out of there. They're already wanting to climb on me. This is Tangerine Crossb with the flower on it. There you go. You can see the flowers on it. It's basically, this is an evergreen vine. Grows up the same size. Again, it's going to get this big by this wide easily. It just has more of this is more evergreen than honeysuckle is. This is like an evergreen honeysuckle on steroids. So it really holds its foliage. Crossb. And you can come take a picture of the tags afterwards. So again, one plant covers a lot of space. Kind of an insider tip. This is also going to want to get 8 foot wide or deep and high. So it's going to want to go big. What I would do is every March, into February, March, I'd take my head shears, I'd trim it back as close to the fence as I could. Then I would fertilize it, and it would just stay tight. It would go up. You got to get fresh, new foliage. Vines tend to get dead and woody in the inside if you don't trim them back heavy. They really do they feel more beautiful. You give them a haircut. Just like gosh, I'm going to grow it. It'll be spectacular now. So that food and cutting is really good on this once a year. Super easy to do. That's a way to keep it in check without kind of growing out, wanting to grow. If you stand still, these vines are so aggressive, they'll start grabbing onto your neck, grab on your collar. They're wanting to go home with you. So, cross vine. And then one I've had for the last few years, it's kind of one of my favorites. This is Achillea, or chocolate vine. Can you take a look at the tag? Achillea is the botanical on it. Evergreen, probably the fastest growing of the evergreen vines. Maybe too fast for some areas, but if you want it quick, this will grow easily 3, 4, 5 feet a year. It's kind of like a grapevine or something. It really grows up fast, solid green. It doesn't do it justice, but literally we have a hard time keeping them in the racks because they grow so fast. But if you want an evergreen, the reason it's called chocolate vine is another name because the flowers of spring have this chocolatey scent to them. They're kind of small flowers. You're not planting it for the flower. You're planting it for the scent of the flower and this beautiful evergreen thing. If you've got deer, antelope, rabbits problems, they don't eat this for sure. They're not going to bother it. So it's kind of a solid. I grew this in Skull Valley. We had elk herds. The elk did not hit it. So it's pretty much, it looks delicious, but animals, for some reason, don't like it. The kiwi is a really strong grower here. Okay? And then secondly, I'll start with the shrub area by introducing this one. This, your grandparents grew. How's that on camera? Can you see that? Is it too big, too small, too front?
Can't see the top of it.
That's all right. They don't need to see the top. Once they have this, they're all good.
Okay,
yeah. This is a pyracantha. Trying to introduce this more. We need to plant more of this because it's so bulletproof. You can't kill it. The problem is its common name is called Firethorn. So you want to hire your gardener to prune this for you because it can scratch you up, or buy some nice, good, strong, thick rose gloves because it is kind of thorny. But because it's so thorny, no one's ever going to mess with this. We use this a lot in commercial settings because it's so bulletproof, even a semi-truck driving over it can't kill it. Consumer cars, that nasty tailpipe stuff is not going to kill this. It just makes it grow bigger. This will easily grow up 10 feet, pretty solid, and it likes to be trimmed. It gets thicker as you trim it. So it could be a bush, could be a vine. Be anything. You can trim this to be whatever you want it. You can train it up a trellis, train it on a fence, or just have it out there lining the driveway. If the kids are cutting the corners, you don't want them to do that, plant this. They're not going to mess with it. It'll stop that like now. So it's a good property line, border kind of thing. Good solid evergreen. Blooms in the spring. This one that has the orange berries. Remember as a kid, you used to throw them at each other? I did. So this is a good, strong grower. Birds love it. It's got all the things you need. The only negative, you just don't want it next to the patio where you might rub up against it because it might just want to go home with you and scratch you. It's got thorns for sure. Pyracantha. That is the vines. Let's go to the big five. The shrubs. So you've got evergreen, mainly evergreens here. And the problem with evergreens is well, they aren't as pretty sometimes. Everyone wants it to bloom with big hibiscus flowers. The evergreen can glow in the dark. Sometimes you got to blend things together, and you can make it more garden-esque. If you really want it to look like an estate, when you look at the width of a plant, just divide that in half, and that's your spacing. So if it's a red tip, do I have red tip? Let's pull this one. This is a top seller. Keton Aster. There's several native varieties of Keton Aster that grow here, so you know it's going to adapt really well. Evergreen. It blooms in the spring. Has red berries, also called red clusterberry Keton Aster, because we got clusters of red berries. Easily goes up 10 feet by 10 feet by 10 feet. It's just a huge ball unless you trim on it. So how many would you need if you wanted a solid wall of this up the back patio to block the living room of the person next to you? About every 5 feet. So you space it, you're spacing, let's call it about like this. Boom. And now you get this crossing, overlapping pattern of head high, where you're not going to see through it. So no matter what the plant is that we're looking at, it says it grows 10 feet wide, divide it. It says it grows 8 feet, divide it. And that's your spacing that you'll need if you want that overlapping pattern. If you want to space it out, let's say this Arizona cypress, this one right here, can they see this? This nice blue, there we go. Probably the number one seller for native, that I need something really big. Neighbors put up a barn, they bought that Class A, they parked it right on your back patio, and they're so proud of it, but it's an abomination to your entertainment value in the back, which you could plant this and it will block it like that. This will easily grow 25 by 12. I mean solid. If the headlights are coming down the street into your front of your house, that will block that. It'll block it like now. Windbreaks, that's how we use this. Privacy windbreaks, okay? Because it looks innocent, but it's going to go 25 by 12. If you want a solid wall, let's say you're on Main Street where on a dirt road where dust is just coming at you, you plant those about every 6 to 8 feet. You're going to get this solid wall of blue up to about, well, probably 8, 10 feet. Like it'll be a solid, like a state type wall going down your property. So that's how you figure out spacing of this. So this would be about every 5 feet. This one again looks innocent, but don't put this right on next to the driveway, or you'll be trying to cut this thing back all the time because it wants to grow 10 feet wide. So respect it and plant it back accordingly. So you're not a slave to pruning this thing. This adapts really, really well here. So I was growing down the Skull Valley. We had a 500, maybe it was a 1,000-gallon propane tank. It was a submarine, basically. We heated the greenhouse in the back with it. Not my house, way too much, but the greenhouses needed heat. Propane is how we did it down there. But it's right on my back property. Like, I don't want to live in an industrial site. I want this to be like a garden. And so I just put 2 of these in the front, on the side. 3 of them within a year blocked that whole thing. You could not see it. I mean, if that 1,000-gallon propane tank, it's as tall as I am. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge tank. So it just blocked it right off. You could not see it anymore. Great way to use not just for privacy, but for blocking or softening up sight lines. Yeah. This is going to be treated like a tree. How much water? About once a week. Deep soak is plenty for this. Could it go by itself after it's established? Maybe, but it won't look pretty. So it'll have cycles of, it's got brown tips. If you want to keep it looking luscious, about once a week water. Be perfect for that. Okay. All right, that's Keton Aster. This is, for you East Coast, Midwest folks, it's the #1 seller back there. This is euonymus. Euonymus naturally grows 6, 7, 8 feet. And its claim to fame is like English estates. It just trims so nicely. You want to make cubes and blocks and Dr. Seuss it, make it look like shapes. This one likes that. And so the more you trim on it, the thicker that it gets. It's going to naturally go up easily 6 feet by 6 feet by 6 feet without really too much care. So how many do you need? About every 3 feet will get you this solid 6 foot high kind of wall effect. Okay, we'll go over how to make things work. I know estate walls are kind of what people are thinking, but I think we can have cake. Oops, sorry, I'm talking with my hands and mitigating the. So these new technology, you give it hand signals, and you can talk to it. The problem is, if you talk with your hands, you're always talking to the camera, and it's doing different things, and it's tracking, then it's not tracking, and it's zooming in, then it's not. So sorry about that. Euonymus is a good one. It comes in. This is a kind of a creamy variegation, comes in gold variegation, comes in solid green, comes in a lot of different colors. That's why it's so great. Here's the insider tip. Animals like the taste of this. So if you're in a neighborhood, if you've got deer herds, your neighbors are feeding the deer, they're coming through your back off the back deck or something, this one's not for you. They'll like eating this unless you do a lot of care with this. It's probably a better choice. The Keton Aster, they don't eat that. They do eat this one, but there's a place for it. So euonymus, great choice for here. 1, 2. This is the same thing. So you can see the differences. Blonde or white, I don't know. They're the same exact size, they're exactly the same, just different colors. That's the only difference. Yep.
So if you want to use them as a block, but you can't take down because so much rock, could you put it in a pot?
So he's got solid rock. I can't dig a hole. Can I just use a pot? Yes. And I'll go over that in a second. Because there'll be decks, patios, what you're describing, solid rock. I just can't dig a hole. We'll go over some of that too. Yeah. I even brought the size pot you want to start with. So I knew that would come up. So euonymus, this is the biggest one in Texas or the South. This one's actually a really strong grower. And you notice these evergreens, they've got a real thick, waxy leaf to them, which makes them very frugal on their water. The reason they're doing this is so they don't evaporate moisture. So it's a defensive thing in dry climates. So this one grows easily, head high, plus some. So think 8 by 8 by 8, solid green. It's got a white flower in spring that's quite fragrant. Kind of clusters. It's not really that pretty a flower. It can be pretty, but you're finding it for this solid green. Okay, this could be grown in a container. I find animals, and to leave this from, again, we've got a native privet that grows here. So animals now, privets, I always get sick to my stomach when I eat this. I think I'll leave it alone and go eat my neighbor's euonymus. So some other things. Okay, so privets are really good. This one is blooming right now. Surprisingly, big grasses are used for screening things. This is Pepus Grass. You've seen it bloom right now around town with that big white flower on top. That's this guy. It naturally grows this big with plumes on top. So it could be a softening screen line. It's going to take the eye and just bring it forward because it's so pretty. The negative with grass is they do need to be cut back in late winter, early spring to really make them pretty. So you'll cut this back, usually in March. We'll cut it back to about, just above ankle high or so. Just take a chainsaw or hedgers and just cut it back, fertilize it, and it will just come back with fresh, new foliage and plumes next year. So this is, I would say, stay away from the traditional Pepus grass. It's just a monster. It's 8-10 foot tall grass. You just don't need something that big. This is ivory feathers. It's a dwarf version of the Pepus grass that grows wild in like California, Oregon up that coast. This is a preferred variety. So now all of a sudden it gets this, it's big, but now the plumes are right there at eyesight where you can enjoy it more. Whereas regular Pepus grass, they're just too big. So we just purposely don't sell that one here. We force everyone to go to this way because we think it's a better variety and it's longer lived. So most Pepus grass will die out in the center and kind of just starts to get this mangy look about 5 to 8 years in. And then it never recovers from that. This one will go easily 10 years before it starts to die out. Eventually, it does have a life cycle. It starts to die out in the center, then it becomes a horseshoe, and then you're wishing you hadn't planted. That's about 15 years out. You do have to replace this every once in a while to keep it fresh, young, and blooming. Because you're planting this not just for the grass. You're really planting this for that plume that's so big and chunky. It is a heavy feeder, I find. To have really luscious plumes and dark green, rich foliage, it takes regular food. And I'll go over fertilizing here in a moment because you're going to want to juice these things so they grow fast. Because again, I'm thinking you've got privacy issues. You've got something going on where you don't want to see that. You want to block it so you feel more, I don't know, like a secret garden. Food is going to make that happen faster. So I'll go over how to pull that off. But you're going to fertilize this at least 3 times a year. An all-purpose plant food. I'll show you which one. Pepus grass. Good choice. Okay. What else we got? Let's go with some shaded, because not everyone's got full sun. Let's go with this one. So if you got a more shaded area, so in the pine forest, you got a north-facing patio, you want to have a screen. Some of these sun-loving plants we just mentioned are not going to be happy with that. There's better choices in the shaded areas for your gardens. That's going to be you. This is a columnar holly. So it's got the classic white flowers, red berries, but you're planting it from this because it just has this nice, solid, evergreen, thick, rich, solid, thick plant. It's going to grow easily 10 by about 3 to 4 feet wide. It's very much pencil shape. So here you might have to plant these every couple of feet to get that solid wall of green going across the back patio. The great thing about that is it doesn't get very wide. So you don't have to trim on it a lot to keep it thick and full. It just does it naturally without as much care, but take a couple more plants to make that whole thing filled in for you. This is which type of holly is this? Color. This is Emerald Colonade holly. Colonade holly. Hollies grow amazingly well here, surprisingly. You wouldn't think so. It's like if you think of it as an East Coast thing, but because it's got that waxy leaf to it, it just tolerates our dryness really, really well. What it doesn't like is our midday sun in June. The tag says we're growing full sun. Yes, it will live, but it won't look great. If you want it to look really good and keep that solid green without that richness to it, give it some morning sun, some afternoon, late day sun, fine. At midday from 10 to 2 in June, it's not going to like that. Once the monsoons come, everything's okay, but there's a place. So not everything on that national tag is accurate. Sometimes we can modify that here. That's what we're here for, to help you get the right plant for the right space. This is probably the #1 seller in the country, bar none, Boxwood. It's kind of boring. I've sold thousands of them. It's evergreen. It doesn't do anything but this, evergreen. But it's consistent. It just always does this, evergreen. And so it can shape it, trim it, do whatever size you want. There's a couple different colors, heights. There's some that are columnar shape, but boxwoods are a strong grower. And it's got a waxy leaf to it. Very frugal, water once a week. Peak is summer. Is happy with that because it's got a deep root structure to it. And the more you cut on it, the thicker that it gets. So it's good plant. Animals don't like it. Deer, javelina, rabbits, antelope, they don't eat this. It looks delicious, but they don't eat it. It's got a sap that they just don't like. So a good strong grower, very consistent, long-lived. That's why I use this in so many English gardens, because you can plant it's good for 50 years. It's going to live out there in the gardens. Okay. Boxwood. Let's move to the trees. So now we've got the upright evergreen trees. Hey, Johnny, can you kind of go over here? Just give them a spacing. There, good job. Using the tech. So #1 seller, Arizona cypress. We'll sell 5 of these for every one of all the other ones. Because it grows, it's an Arizona cypress. It grows here naturally. Some of the junipers you see growing in the wild aren't junipers, they're Arizona cypress. And the only way I can really tell the difference is junipers put a berry on, but these put on a little tiny cone about the size of a golf ball. So if it has a cone on it, it's a cypress. It's got a berry, it's a juniper. There's a place for both, okay? 25 feet by 12 foot wide. It's a big boy, so respect it accordingly. It's great for the back property lines. You can back at the corners. You need something big and chunky right there. Perfect for those spots. Looking across the valley at your neighbor's barn, put it right there. It's going to block that off. There's places for it. And it's only 25 feet, so it's typically not going to block your vistas, or we can use it to frame the vistas. If you're overlooking the Granite Mountains or Glassford Hill, you want to show it off, you can actually use this to frame that, bring the eye, just kind of force people to look at your views. But a great, good, strong grower. Again, some of these big evergreens, they don't fill in until they get in the ground. So in the bucket that we're growing them in, they tend to grow tall. The challenge for us to grow them where they get chubby. So we typically will trim them back. We hold them back an extra year to get them full. So Arizona cypress. What I did is, so they're going to get 12 foot wide. So you're spacing, if you want a solid wall, let's say you're on a major road, you want to deaden the noise, that kind of stuff, with a living wall, great choice. You're going to plant this about every 6 to 8 feet. So you get that overlapping pattern up pretty high. And it's going to grow like a Christmas tree. Not like a Christmas tree. It's going to grow like a juniper looking thing. Like, it's got a central leader, but it's not truly swooping branches. It's more like it's like a cypress, the way to describe it. What I will do often is I'll plant, and I brought this for you as an example, in between, especially as they're younger, I'll use aspens. I brought this as a maple. That's probably our strongest growing red maple. That's called blaze maple. It grows easily 35 feet by 15, 18 foot wide. Just a beautiful shade tree. And it's the fastest growing of the red fall colored maples. And it doesn't get the wind tear that your Midwestern Acer Rebra red maples do. That one gets torn up by the wind when it's young. This one doesn't do that. So it's a much better choice. Actually, what this is, we take a graft of a red maple, we graft it onto a silver maple, and you get this plant. So it's not naturally growing. It's created to be this. So you get the fast growth of the silver maple, but you get the red of the red maples. So you get the best of both characters. So it's a grafted tree. It is deciduous, it's going to lose its leaves, but I brought it because if you need something really fast, this will grow 3 to 4 feet a year. This is going to grow 1 foot. So you got 4 times the growth rate. You can have your cake and eat it too. So sometimes I'll zigzag. I'll put my wall of green, say every 6 feet for my Arizona cypress. It's going to take 3 years before it fills in to be really full. I'll plant in between some deciduous trees because they grow so fast. So they'll quickly block up tall, but then down below, as my green starts to fill in, it'll start to block it. Okay, so that makes sense. Sometimes I'll sacrifice like fast-growing cottonwoods. It's a beast. Who needs an 80-foot tree in your yard, 80 by 80 by 80? It's a monster. It lifts driveways. It's problematic. It's short-lived, but it does grow fast. And sometimes I'll plant those just for the 5 or 6 years of enjoyment. I fully expect to cut them down later as my evergreen starts to fill in, things mature. I'll sacrifice it later. So you live in America, you can have it all. You just got to strategize which ones you want to do that with. This is such a pretty tree. I would actually bring it out or back. I would stagger it in between where I could let it just live there by itself and be glorious for the rest of its life. It's a blaze maple, B-L-A-Z-E, blaze, or autumn blaze, Prescott blaze. It's got several names. Probably the number one red tree you'll see turning red first. You see just a touch starting to happen now. In 2 weeks, as we get into September or October, the first tree to turn red, that's it. They'll be maples. You can drive down, you're going with your golf buddies, you're going, oh, that's not a blaze maple. They'll be going, how do you know that? I know people. So just know, that's almost guaranteed that's what that's going to be. There's so many of them. All right, so that's the example here. Just plant your greens, put some deciduous things. You can blend things together, and quickly it looks like a garden, less like a estate wall going down the driveway. Yeah.
Cypress, shade or sun?
These are all sun or shade. These are all full sun. I would say at least 6 hours of sun. Maples, if you don't give them sun, they'll just reach up and they'll go. They're such big trees. They're going to go to the sun no matter what. It's going to hold them back. So they'll need more sun. Better. Sun, wind, brutality, cursing. They like all that. They're all good with that. Okay.
Spacing?
So.
Spacing?
It doesn't matter. Spacing. What's that?
Spacing?
Spacing. So this is a big plant. So if you want spacing for the Arizona cypress, they're going to get 12 foot wide. So if you want solid wall going up well above head high, you're about every 6 to 8 feet. You can actually space it out some more, but then you're not going to get that overlapping pattern. So it'll be more tree-lined driveway than it is wall. So you got to, that's when come take a picture, bring it into us, and then tell us how long it is, and we can help you do the math on how many you think you need, kind of describe what that thing is. So my plan. Maple will be much larger. That's probably 20 feet tall, and it's 30 feet tall, but 20 feet wide. That one's going to be, well, usually with shade trees, you're not overlapping. Although you can do that down a street, driveway, street line thing, but probably at every 10 to 15 feet spacing. So half as many as the Arizona cypress. Okay, arborvitae. This is what it does. This is what it does. 15, maybe 10, 12 feet, pretty much. It's beautiful, ball-shaped. It is a very popular plant, especially in the eastern Midwest. I find when it's younger, the snow, we get such heavy snow real early and real late that it can tend to break these things, and it does this. So I don't generally use it in my yard. I bring it to you because it is such a popular plant. I think junipers are better. I use juniper because we're in juniper forest. I'll explain why I do that. It's not an allergy thing for me. But it has junipers have central leaders with branches coming off of it, so it doesn't tend to split, break. Sometimes you'll need to tie. You'll see folks taking tie tape and keep for winter. They'll keep it like this so the snow doesn't separate it. So arborvitae is a good, strong growth for here. So, okay. I prefer to use this one. There we go. So this is Wichita blue. This is blue arrow, but junipers. So let me just, some folks go, oh, I'm thinking of allergies right now as you put it on the chair. There are male junipers and there are female junipers. The males are the problem, not the females. Males put the pollen on. Males are the ones you have allergies to. Males are the ones that turn yellow and they explode and you see the dust floating across the valley. That's the male junipers are the ones you're reacting to. The females you are not. Well, we're good growers here. We have the ability to only sell females, and that's what we do. So we did females will put the berries on. So if you're walking through the forest and it's got berries on it, that's a female juniper. You can just guarantee. If it's got yellow polyps on it in the starting late winter, that's a male. That's the problem. And usually late February, March, you can almost watch the morning sun hit it. It just goes poof. He thinks he's going to go pollinate every single female on the mountainside. And that's one where your head swells up and it's causing that reaction to some of us. So I think there's a place for junipers. They're so tough. You just can't come. Animals don't eat them. Bugs don't get on them. We just got it's a strong grower. So for me, I live up in that Prescott Lakes, Prescott Highlands area. We're in that natural chaparral. So lots of oaks and manzanitas, lots of blues already there. I wanted more green. So I planted Spartan juniper because I wanted a green. Again, my front patio was up this morning, my pajamas, reading my newspaper on the front patio, right next to our main street. Neighbors are walking their dogs, going by, and I really don't want you to see me when I want to read my paper by myself. So I planted Spartan junipers in a row, put a wall over here. We've got fountains and hummingbirds. It's just beautiful, and private, and designed. But I planted junipers there just for that reason. So they're maybe 7, 8 years old. So they've been in the ground so long, I forgot when I planted them. They're easily up 10 feet tall by 6 foot wide. I just zigzag like this in the bit by the road. And then I put Russian sage in front of those. It's a big blue flowering shrub about hip high or so. And I stepped down with some sage, big, beautiful, red blooming hummingbird plants. Just got red blooms on them. So the sage is, so when you walk by, you go, they've got such a nice house. Oh, look how beautiful it is. But you can't look down at me read my newspaper on the front. That's purely by design. But I did that with junipers because I didn't want a bunch of hair for them. Okay, so junipers. And I think we're down to it. So we've covered everything. So the big evergreens, trees, Arizona cypress, you've got junipers, arborvitae, I would also throw in there your pine trees if you really want to do more of a forested feel. Spruce, like Colorado spruce, that's a big plant. You can mix some Austrian pines, some pinyon pines. They're almost too big for privacy sometimes, but you can easily intermix that. That's why if you really are, if you got an idea, bring your Pinterest board in, your pictures you've been cutting out, take a picture of the space. We can help you design that, tell you how many you think you need to go down that driveway or down that pathway or up that back of that property. But there is a place for, especially if you've already got some pine trees there, a big juniper, we can spot some other ones in there and just create this kind of natural flow, but private. There's a way to blend that, or garden has to design it accordingly. So I didn't bring those in here, but those are part of that. Your big shrubs, so tall evergreen shrubs. So it's Redtipotenia, Euonymus, Keton Asters, Boxwoods. Those are all good solid growers. Spacing is going to be everything. So on that, typically, so you want to have us help you, guide you to make sure, because you don't want to be 5 years in and go, God, I wish I bought that one extra one and space was a little bit more. Once you're committed, you just want to get that number right when you start. You don't want to wait 3 to 5 years and go, God, I wish I had done some more. And now we're trying to modify that garden space. It's such a mistake I've seen a lot of folks make. And then vines, honeysuckles, Achillea, crossvine, and pyracantha. Easily grow up a fence. The seek where that is, just cut it back with a hedger. Late winter, early March. Just shave it back until you start to ding or nick the fence. Fertilize it right back, and it'll start to grow. And I find that folks with hedges and things, they prune them too early, and then they have this butchered look. You plant them in January, doesn't make any difference to the plant. They don't care if they're pruned in January or in March. But most plants are going to start growing, actively growing, in March. Sometime it starts to thaw, we're past the cold. Yeah, we'll get some more snow, it's frosty, but things are starting to emerge, starting to bloom, starting to grow. I purposely try to prune as close to that date as I can so that I don't have all those cut limbs and stuff. It looks like you pruned it. If you pruned it in January, it's going to be that way for 2 months. If you simply waited till March, you'd have less of that cut back look to your vines and your shrubs mainly, okay? All right, questions, folks online. If you got a question, just go for it. Type it in there where you get priority status, okay? What about over here? Which trees are drought resistant?
Shrubs.
Oh, shrubs. All the ones that we mentioned here, you're going to water once a week. Plenty. In fact, all of these, if you overdo it, with evergreens, you tend to kill them by overwatering. I find folks overwater most of their plants, especially those folks out in the valley areas where they got their own wells. Chino Valley called it grossly overwater things. Stop killing your plants by overwatering. I know water is free, and the folks that are in town where water is expensive, they tend to underwater. So water more. You can't just do it once and they're done for 3 months. Now is a tremendous time to plant because the pressure is awful watering. But you can't plant now, give it a deep soak, and expect it to go through winter with no water. You will need to water plants that are planted now at least twice a month through winter. So then when the growing season starts again, typically the end of March, first part of April, you're activating those irrigation systems. Then you're watering things probably once a week, especially when they're established, okay? Arizona cypress, once they're going, you probably let them go, do their own thing. I don't tend to do that because I want them to remain. There's this natural cycle that it's glorious in spring and then looks beat up and kind of looks like they're thirsty in summer, and then the monsoons come and then they get nice again. By simply irrigating that hot May and June time until sometime in July, the monsoons hit, just a matter of when. It keeps the gap, it keeps them looking luscious, keeps them blooming, keeps them rich green, it keeps them looking good. So I'm playing with my irrigation right now. I'm throttling back my irrigation because we've had some moisture and it's just not hot. It's cool now. And so I'm starting to throttle back. I was at once a week, now back to every 8 days. I'll probably go to every 9 days. Here is if it stays like this, but I just know it's going to get warm again. So I'll kind of keep it. I'm just throttling back one day at a time. I'm going, and when you're watering, you're not playing with how long you run it. Once you know how long it takes to run that irrigation, to deep soak that tree or those shrubs, those flowers, or whatever that is, don't ever change that. Get that out of the equation, because that's the one that dumbfounds you. I don't know. You're playing with how long can the plants go in between those water cycles. You're playing with the cycles. Playing with, I'm going every once a week or every 4 days or every day for my containers. We wanted to mention containers. We'll do that. Here. You're playing with, I was watering every day my containers because it's been hot and they were beautiful. And I think now I can go every other day. I'll see if I can go to every third day here pretty quick. So I'm playing with how many days can I go in between those water cycles. I don't play with how long they're running. It's always the same variable. Does that make sense? So there's a whole class on nothing but irrigation. I don't want to go into that, but containers. I brought this container not because of color or style, but because of size. This would be the minimum size I would grow pretty much any of these plants in, or I would go bigger. So this would be the minimum because I could grow. I brought this just because it just looks good. Black and gold, classic. Blue and gold, cobalt blue and gold looks classic. You cannot go wrong. They're timeless. This is a big plant. I've got this one on my back patio. It is easily 4 feet by 4 feet. In fact, I need to cut on it. I think I'm going to trim it back this weekend just because I can still trim it now and still flush some new growth so I can get it looking good but smaller through winter. So I'll probably trim it real quick. Just give it a haircut. But it's easily like this. So I can easily do that on your deck, and I could probably get it to go taller if I wanted. But there's a place where I have it on my back patios where that's the size I want. It looks good. It's been in there for 5 or 6 or 7 years. I don't know. It's so long I've forgotten how long I planted it. It's in just a touch bigger size pot. When I brought it this is the size I would start with. Seems like folks want to go too small. And then they max out their pot in 4 or 5 years, and all of a sudden the thing's root down, pushing out, breaking the pot, or just it chokes itself out. Go to the next size up. You could grow any of these big plants that would grow for years. I mean, I have trees in containers. They tend to get bigger containers, but we tend to focus on our niche in the pottery market here in this area, this part of the county, resort size or commercial size pots, or big home size, $1 million home size pots. You get it too small going up to your front door and it's a glorious door. It can look like, what, they ran out of money? It didn't have enough for the right size? It looks disproportionate. It's a feeling that you'll go, it's not quite big enough. But the plants will like the more root size or soil size, because the soil is the sponge that holds the moisture in the food. And so that's the bigger you give, the more you give it, the longer you can go. And I've got plants that are years. In fact, I've got roses in pots I'm just bored with. I want a different color. I want it to die, and it just won't die because I gave it too big a pot. So I might just have to call it and go, I just want to, instead of red, I want yellow now. And so you can trade things out. Okay, so that's what I brought this. When you're planting this, don't get crazy. Stop reading on the internet to put pine needles and Coke cans and all kinds of crazy stuff in the bottom of it. Just potting soil all the way, as much soil as you can. That's what you want. As the soil gets water and it swells, it's not going to drain out the bottom. Where the soil is going in your containers, the plants are actually using the soil. If it's happy, it's using the soil up. So you go, oh, the wind blew my soil away. No, the plant is using the soil. So you might need to top off or add every spring some extra few handfuls of potting soil because the plants are using this. And so it's raised beds the same way. Go, where'd the soil go? The plants are using it. And so if it's a happy plant, just add some more potting soil. We make our own growers. We grow in our own soil. So that's give it more of that. So water's potting soil, just fill it up with that and go up to about 1 inch from the top. Now you I put my drip irrigation on top of that. Make a little stick irrigator thing that has a spray head. super good for container plants. But if I leave a little bit of edge, I can water by hand with a hose on that 102 day in June that we're going to see twice, and then it's going to be back to the 90s. I can kind of supplement without that water overflowing. I find that most folks don't fill the pots up far enough. They leave too much. So it looks like they got this $80 plant in this $150 pot, and they didn't have money for the soil. Just got a little bit extra. You can't get enough soil. Just fill it up to where you're just an inch from the top. The plants will be happier in the long term, be easier to care for, and it looks more appropriate for the container. Makes sense? You know, I cringe sometimes when I see what people are going, oh, where'd they get that from? What do I do with my pots in the winter? I just keep them out there. I mean, this guy's been, I just leave it there. It goes down, this is a zone 4 plant, it goes down to like -5 or 10 degrees. We'll never see that kind of cold. It's happy. The secret with raised beds, if you have solid rock and you're doing containers and raised beds, the secret with that is you need to water your plants through winter. What will happen is we get a cold storm. You know the event. Storm's coming. They've been telling us about it for a week. Everyone runs to the grocery store. The shelves are empty. Like they think we're going to be stuck inside for a month. It's only like 2 days. Then it all melts off. We're done. Before that event comes, before that cold event comes, water your plants. A hydrated plant in winter can take on whatever cold. They have antifreeze in them. The problem that happens is when they get dry, that antifreeze can't get moved. It's not liquid enough to move around the plant. So we'll get what's called winter killer or winter burn. The tips will burn back. If you simply had watered that plant before the cold came, it could keep that antifreeze flowing in that plant. There's no damage. And so you'll see in the spring some hedgerows, some of these big evergreens. Their landscape will turn their irrigation off in November. They've not been watered until they get turned back on in like April. You'll see some of those plants game the tips or the end of the run will get killed off or burned back. That's the whole reason why. We had a dry spell in winter sometime, and then we got hit by cold, and that's when that damage. It happened in one event. So if you simply water things, it takes the edge off. So I'll water my plants. I'm growing figs, roses, trees, peach trees, all in containers. Lots of Japanese maples because it's huge 2-story house, big north-facing patio where we entertain. It's beautiful right now. Perfect place for shade-loving, some little shade-loving plants, hydrangeas. That's big around in a pot in full color right now in a pot. It's been in there for years. So you can do this. Watering is the key in winter. Okay. Great question though. What else? Too much? Yeah, snow doesn't water. What happens is the snow lights up on top of the foliage, and then it drips down outside the pot. And you'll go in right after a snowstorm, it's still bone dry. You'll need to water with a hose. This is where you don't have to just trust automation. If the irrigation's off, you can go old school and pull the hose out, actually water the plant. And that's kind of what I do. So I'm kind of a crazy guy. Snow just started flurrying. I'm getting home from work. I'm out there watering my plants. What's that crazy guy doing? But I have glorious plants that have been out there for a year. I have over 50 containers and lots of raised bed. Kind of on a hillside overlooking the dells. It's solid rock or heavy clay, like jackhammer clay. Can't dig a hole in it. And so I just have retaining block that go down the hill. And I backfill that. I've gardened those where I have lots of big swooping patios. And I've got patios are great. They get too big and sterile. So you want to soften that up. So this is beautiful. Even without, there's nothing in it. It's beautiful. And so even if I put a deciduous hammer maple or let's say a hibiscus and it goes loses its leaves, this pot will carry it because it's so beautiful. If you're doing containers, be careful. Everyone sells clay, plastics, woods. I wouldn't garden in plastic. It gets too wet in the fall. In early spring, you get root rot a lot. So I tend to overwater things. It doesn't breathe. Plastic doesn't breathe. Wood tends to rot out in the middle, and wood pots just scream 1990s. I mean, railroad ties, whiskey barrels. It just kind of dates a little bit. There's a place for cabinet kind of places. There's a place to have it fit, but the glazed things tend to bring out the color stuff. With pots, there's different grades of clay. Some of them freeze and thaw and break, and some are heavy clay that have been kiln dried long enough where they're solid. So you want to buy the right kind of clay. You know where you buy that at? Waters Gardens. So I'm trying to get containers that grow you can grow in year round without having to store them dry in the shed or something underneath the deck or whatever. Mexican clay down in Phoenix they sell. That stuff melts. It only lasts one season. If it's out in the cold, it will break and flake and crack, guaranteed. That's one of the Mexican clay is typically not as good a quality of clay, and then they don't kiln dry it. They dry it in a fire pit. That's where you get this real charcoaly kind of beautiful decorative kind of stuff. They're more for interior use here or exterior down there. That's where the Phoenix stuff is different than up here, up in God's country. It gets cold. Cold, when water gets inside that clay and then you freeze and thaw, that's what causes that. Okay, so be careful here. You should hear a nice ring to it. That means it's solid clay to it. What else? You're doing okay? How about online? Good. With that, I will hang out as long as you want. You can get your questions or other thoughts. I will hang out as long as you want. And then look for an email from me here by the time maybe you get home, maybe a little after. I'll have those 2 handouts for you. Okay. But before you go, just my old stage, and lots of years on stage. In fact, I met my wife in a traveling choir. She's a priest. Anyway, I won't go to that story. I'll let you clap. Okay.